welcome back to Pod of the Dead. I am your host, Nicholas. With me are my co-hosts.
I am the wife, Stephanie, and I am known as the harsh critic.
I'm the sister, Natasha, and I'm the inattentive viewer.
And I'm your friendly neighborhood elitist scum. On today's episode, we will be doing our first double feature. So we're going to do these at the end of every month. And for our first double feature, we are going to be covering The Strangers from 2008 and Scream from 1996. We will be starting with Scream. Or not Scream, I am sorry. We will be starting with Strangers, instantly threw everyone for a loop. What is everybody's history with this film prior to watching it for the show?
I had nothing. So I kind of went into this blind like I did our last movie. And I had seen like trailers or something because this is like a little bit bigger of a budget film. And I wasn't sure much about it until we started watching it. And then I realized it was like a slasher home invasion type feel. And I didn't know that until we were literally just getting into it. So I have nothing until now.
I've seen it before and I like it.
I saw it like not too long after it released at home and stuff like that. I didn't see it in the theaters. And I remember liking it when it first came out. It did not hold up for myself. But we'll see how it goes. So The Strangers is a 2008 American psychological horror film written and directed by Brian Bertino in his directorial debut and his first installment of the Strangers film series. The plot follows Kristen, played by Liv Tyler, and James, played by Scott Speedman, whose stay in a vacation home is disrupted by three masked criminals who infiltrate the home. The screenplay was inspired by two real-life events: the multiple homicide Manson family Tate murders, and a series of break-ins that occurred in Bertino's neighborhood as a child. So did any of you know anything about this?
No.
Nope.
So like I said, it was written and directed by Brian Bertino. It stars Liv Tyler, Scott Speedman, Glenn Howerton as the friend. Did anybody notice who that was? It was Mr. Dennis
Yes,
Reynolds.
I did.
I don't know him from anything. He just looked familiar. So,
and the budget for this film was $9 million. So I believe that's a little higher than any of the films that we've done previously. And its box office was $82.4 million. So it's kind of seen as a cult hit because it did do pretty well in theaters, but it doesn't really get talked about as much as a lot of films do. Let's see here. The good old Roger Ebert had a few words to say about this film. In his review for the Chicago Sun-Times, he gave the film 1.5 stars out of 4, saying the movie deserves more stars for its bottom line craft, but all the craft in the world can't redeem its story.
Didn't he originally give it a 1, but then there was like one slight redeeming quality, and he was like, well, bump it up. 1.5.
All right. So before we start digging into this film and everything, we will play our weekly game of 1 out of 10 or 10 out of 10, where I dug up some reviews on IMDb, and we will see if you guys can figure out which one's the 1 out of 10 or the 10 out of 10. This is another one of those even scarier because it could actually happen movies. And it could, obviously. No superpowers, no living after death, no invincible serial killer. It's all right here in reality. Things like this really happened, and as always, that makes a scary movie significantly more scary. A recent unhappier couple stay for the night in a remote area, rather far from civilization, but not totally in the middle of nowhere. 3 masked strangers begin to stalk them in the newly unique ways. If you are even the least bit interested in just suspense, see this movie.
That has to be 10 out of 10. Yeah. There were no mean things
That
said.
has to be. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, they were positives. Yeah. Yeah.
The Strangers started out promising. The narrator made it feel like the movie was going to be violent. Well, I think I may have fallen asleep, and here is a list as to why. The acting is terrible. There is barely any talking. It is just music and shots of the strangers.
That's true.
What they do in certain situations is so unbelievably stupid. I wanted to kill them. It feels like it goes on forever. They damped out all the colors too much. The movie was pretty much brown. There is no horror in it whatsoever. The Strangers is terrible. Don't waste your time. For those with the extended cut, I feel sorry for you.
I wanted to kill them.
I mean, he could have been a part of the movie, I guess, but
yeah.
But he's not wrong though. I mean, that is what happens in the movie. I mean, it's very like on point. He just didn't like any of the stuff.
Yeah.
I think I like these 1-star reviews because they're like really cutthroat and they talk like down to the bare bones of what these movies really are.
You should have seen the amount that I had to like not get. They were really good, but they were so long. People that give 1-star reviews write diatribes.
Have so much to say.
Well, they do the same thing in anything. Like I write books for a living, and my 1-star reviews are far superior to like the other ones, and they go down to the nitty gritty of everything. And it's kind of like, I don't know, it's flattering in a way because if people have that much of a visceral reaction to a movie or a book or anything, and they have to go out on the internet and just spew their diatribes, it's kind of like, didn't the person that created this stuff win because of that?
They put a lot of thought into what they're saying.
They did.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where there's no such thing as bad press.
Correct.
Yeah.
Well, because like there's so many times they'll be like 10 out of 10 wasn't bad. It's like, well, that's not what 10 out of 10 means.
Yeah, exactly.
Loved it. And that's it.
Yeah, give me something. Give me what the 1 stars are going to give me. Like, I want
to know. All right. So, without further ado, we are going to throw up the spoiler warning. Beyond this point on Pot of the Dead, we are going to basically walk through the movie, comment on what we thought of certain parts of it, what we thought was going to happen. We're basically going to run the movie through. If you want to watch The Strangers, I suggest watching it now or fast forward to the Scream part if you want to do that. Otherwise, we are going to get into it with The Strangers from 2008. So, as the review had mentioned, there is a cold open narrator talking about, based on true events and all this stuff. And it kind of gives you this, the remake of Texas Chainsaw and everything in like the early 2000s was playing this whole like true crime angle at the time. And then you just hear the sound of a 911 call, and you hear a young boy going, "There's blood everywhere."
And it's supposed to take place in like February of 2005 or something like that. So they're kind of giving you like a specific frame of reference, I guess. And I wondered if that was very significant, but I don't know if we really looked into that, if that was actually something, or they're just trying to build this in order to make it more believable.
Yeah, because they had mentioned that like during this time there was a slew of break-ins, and like this was just a part of it. I think it was one of the things that the narrator was saying. I personally didn't like the narrator talking. I would have liked it more if it was just like flashed up on the screen for us to read, and then or have like the overlay of the kids talking. But I thought the narrator was slightly cheesy.
So you're not one for movies for the blind. You just stick it to having to read it, and the blind get nothing.
Ouch.
Okay.
Captioning's for.
So then there's some soft-spoken tension between the two leads.
Yeah.
And you're not 100% sure what's going on here. And our lead male, James, calls his friend to pick him up. And he's just kind of like, you think that they're together, but you're not sure what's going on. But there's just like this very like awkward tension between them.
Yeah, she's crying and he's eating ice cream, and like it's this weird like, I don't know, like this build in a very like murky setting almost.
Then we get a flashback to earlier in the night. It seems to be like a wedding reception of some sort. And it's in a very like cute way. He's like lifts her up, like walking her out to the car and stuff. And she's talking about how cold it is outside. And we get our reasoning for why there's this weird kind of elephant in the room. And it's essentially a proposal gone wrong. He pulls a ring out from his jacket and she kind of holds back a little bit and tells him, like, I don't think she flat out says it at this moment, but she refutes his proposal. She says, I'm not ready. That's what it is. And after that, you get her saying, like, in a, it seems sincere way, she's like, I'm sorry it didn't go the way you wanted. I'm just not ready. So it's after the flashback. She does kind of talk about that a little bit. And then out of nowhere, out of the awkwardness, James and Kristen, played by Liv Tyler, decide that they're going to get down to business right there in the kitchen of who I believe it's their parents, his parents' house. Yeah, so just right there on the countertop. And it's about 4 a.m. we find out because there is a knock at the door and they're kind of put off by it. And it's like, who's out here? It's like 4 a.m.
Yeah. Yep.
They look out the windows and stuff to kind of see who's there out the peephole, but the front patio is darkened. And there's a girl there asking for a specific name. Let me see here. I have it. What? Yes.
Tamara.
Yep.
Is Tamara there?
Is Tamara home? So, little Easter egg here. The blonde girl makes her first appearance and asks if Tamara is home. Gemma Ward, who plays this character, also played in Pirates of the Caribbean Stranger Tides as Tamara. So she's kind of using the same name referencing and stuff. It's got to kind of be a nod to that thing.
Yeah, I was wondering what the significance of that name was. That's cool.
But like, there's actually like a really weird like lineage of things that have stranger in the title that people that are in this were tied to, such as Liv Tyler's dad, Steven Tyler from Aerosmith. Before he was in Aerosmith, he was in a band called The Strangers. There's a song that repeatedly gets played in this movie by Merle Haggard and The Strangers, and the song is called Mama Tried. So it's very interesting how all those things kind of tied up into this film.
Yeah. But
as I said, he looks out front. There's a girl out there, but in shadow because he goes to flip on the light. It's not working. And then she's just like, see you later, which is kind of eerie because the way she's speaking is in a very like, when they say like it's kind of based on the Manson family killings and stuff like that. It definitely has this like culty, like dream, like, all right, kind of feel to it.
But she doesn't even say bye or anything like that. She's like, are you sure? And then just wisps away. And at this point, is this when we realize that the light bulb was unscrewed?
Yeah, he fixes it.
Yep, he goes out on the front porch and just screws them back in. So obviously showing some sort of tampering. And then at that point, Kristen is talking about how she's out of cigarettes. And James is like, I'll go get you some. She's like, no, it's fine. I'll just go to sleep. And the tension's still there. And he's like, no, you won't. So I just need to drive anyway to, basically clear his mind and everything. So he leaves to go get her some cigarettes. And the weird thing about this movie is time passing. It has to do with the editing and stuff. Some things happen that it seems like it's like in a matter of 5 seconds, but it could have been 30 minutes. You don't really know. So basically, like once he leaves the house, the fire that he had made for her just right before, I believe, the door knocking incident happens, the chimney just starts backing up like instantly. He leaves and then the smoke starts pouring into the house.
Until she opens the flue, and then the fire or the smoke detector starts going off, and she takes the smoke detector down. And it's like this very like methodical way that they run the plot in this with that.
Or did somebody close the flue when the blonde girl was at the door? Yeah. This house has so many doors.
True.
You do hear some thumping on the roof that like kind of startles her a little bit, but it could have been like apples falling out of a tree or a random animal. As the movie goes on, clearly there's no goddamn animals out here. It's just 3 crazy ass people.
Yep.
But she goes to call James on the landline because her cell phone's dead, and it's a nice old school like Nokia flip phone, really setting the time.
You skipped something though. At this point, there's been knocking at the door again. Yeah, so the girl comes back, is knocking at the door, and this is even creepier because that part, she says the same thing with the same timing as the first time she said it. So knock at the door. Liv doesn't answer. She's yelling through the door. She's like, we already talked to you. Go away. And it's that same, is Tamara home?
That's
Are you
right.
sure?
That's what happens right after James leaves. Then the chimney happens. So there's the knocking on the door.
And that's when she locks the door.
Finally locks the door. Like you've had this one person show up at your door. The light bulbs have been fucked with. Your wannabe fiance leaves and you just leave the door unlocked.
Exactly. The fact that he left irritates me.
After 4 a.m. in the morning, after somebody's already like banged on your house and it's creepy and like, why? And you're in the middle of nowhere. Like this makes no sense other than he's like emotionally distraught because she didn't agree to marry him at this point. But at the same time, it's like, this is just weird. And yeah, she has like these old flip phones. So they do play really well into the 2005 is when the movie was supposed to, or the time was supposed to take place. So they play really well into like that. But my favorite part is like right around this exact same time, they have a song that starts playing on the record player. And it's a child song that says, should we go outside? And I was just like, this is super creepy. Like, what is going on in this house?
The best parts of the movie, in my opinion, there's a scene coming up, but then all of the music cues of the record player and how it ties into what is going on. If it weren't for those, it like that alone gives this movie a point.
Correct.
For me.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, because it's quiet until the record player just ominously starts as if it's like its own character within the movie.
It kind of is. Like the music itself is its own entity, and the lighting in the movie is the same way.
Yeah, this movie is aggressively silent. Like it is so quiet at times. You can literally hear like the like cicadas outside while they're inside. Like it's when you're used to like these big bombastic sounds and then the volume just drops out completely. It's kind of shocking how quiet it gets at times. Mm-hmm. But yeah, at this time is when she goes to call James, but the phone line goes dead when she's trying to do it. And I've just got phone line cut. Like it's literally like, how would you kill somebody in the middle of nowhere?
Yeah.
In the early 2000s.
Yeah.
And the fact that she was just like, can you stay on the line with me?
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
cut.
Yep. So this is my favorite scene in the movie. So she's in the kitchen and she gets the remnants of a cigarette out of the ashtray, and it looks like almost a full cigarette. She lights it, and she's kind of just wandering around, and it's this really wide shot of the kitchen. Kind of see what looks like maybe the dining room off to the side, and a massive doorway that looks like it goes into a hallway and stuff. And at this time, she's walking around, and if you don't pay attention, you will miss it. But this sack-headed character just comes in from out of the shadows and just stands there. In this scene, it's like a static shot scene for a probably good minute or so of her just walking back and forth, maybe getting like a glass of water and stuff like that. And then he just disappears back into the shadows. They could have just ended the movie right there, and I'd be like, 10 out of 10. This is great.
Yeah. That is one of like my primal fears, is that scene right there.
Yep.
The idea of being watched without realizing you're being watched.
It's too bad, in my opinion, that it doesn't keep that, in my opinion, that tension.
Correct.
Because like the first time they do that and everything, because Steph had just like, she looked down to write something down or whatever, and that scene happened. I just stopped it, rewound it. I was like, you missed something. And she's like, oh, okay. And she's like, oh, right on. All right. So yeah, like it's super creepy. They used poorly. They ended up using it as like promotional pictures and stuff like that. And it's like, that's literally showing the boat sink. Like that's such a like iconic shot in this movie, and then they just kind of blow it.
Well, during all of this, so he's like, I have the note here, like the guy in the white mask, and then it says he moved the fire alarm. So like he moved it from one place to another. We don't see that on screen, but as we're kind of paying attention to her, he's supposed to be working his magic in the background here. And that's kind of what a lot of this movie is. It's a lot of like, you're paying attention to her or one of the characters, and then they're doing their thing. And then they come back and show you what these other heathens, or whatever you want to look at them as, have done. And it is creepy because they're like walking amongst them in a way where they're not even noticing it.
Like you don't know that something's happened until after the fact. And it's something so innocuous as just putting the fire alarm thingy on a chair.
Yep.
Like you just picked it up and set it down, and that's like enough to cause like panic inside of her.
Yeah, and I imagine maybe it was at this time that her phone, because she's got her phone charging, would have this been also the time that they dealt with her phone?
Probably, but we don't see that till later. But yeah, it ends up in the fireplace, and then we get a shot of that. But they don't really talk about it a whole lot. It's just kind of a happenstance in the storyline.
Yeah. Yep. At that time, it's unplugged, and from there, she's already fucked. So,
but this is, I can't say that you have to end the movie at that scene, because we also get another, for me, iconic kind of bit, and that's where the record starts skipping, and people are slamming on the door and stuff like that, and kind of playing off of like what Steph said earlier, with it talking about like these children's songs, like talking about going outside, or you shouldn't go outside, or can you go outside. This time it's just skipping, just saying good intentions, good intentions, good intentions. For like 3 minutes, it feels like it's so long. It is so abrasive. Like it kind of
causing.
It's like becomes claustrophobic at that point.
That's a really good way to put it. Yeah.
So yeah, I've just got like record starts skipping, good intentions, then shit goes sideways.
Yeah, I have like metal. They have like door sounds, and like it sounds like wind chimes or metal or something that's like beating against something to create like this ruckus that is like basically amping up your anxiety. If this kind of like plot gives you anxiety, but it's giving her a lot of anxiety in the storyline. And she cuts her hand in the bedroom on a lamp or something like that, or a knife or something. I'm not exactly sure. It doesn't really show. And she's just going through it until her boyfriend returns essentially.
Can I add that she opens the sliding glass door blinds and before that, as everything's happening, and she opens it, and I nearly jumped off the couch. And all you see is the man in the mask staring at her.
Oh yeah.
That one was more scary than the first one of him just standing there. Screamed out into the living room.
See, for me, it's so like messaged, like, oh, what's behind this curtain, and it's there, like it's.
I know that, but that doesn't make it any less scary in the meantime. Like, it's breaking horror movie rules by just whipping that thing open. But that was when you were talking about another one coming up. That's where I went, was Masked Man standing in the window. Like, I don't look out the windows when it's night. Like, either the blinds are shut or I just walk right past them.
Good to know. So yes, James shows back up, and in the most like dickish boyfriend way possible, he like comes, he's like, "What's going on? What's whatever?" And she's like, "There's people out here. They're fucking all this stuff." He walks out of the bedroom she's in, looks just down the hallway, and goes, "No one's here." Like, hasn't checked anything. He's just like, "Bitch, you're crazy."
Yeah, gaslighting at its finest.
Yeah. Oh, the 2000.
Yeah.
Back when men were men.
And he almost seems dismissive. So like they do go around and look, but even then it's almost like he's irritated by doing it, which just adds to how much I don't like him.
I know. Well, then he goes on like the porch and then he's like, "I'm a big bad man," and then he's like, and we were talking about that, and Nick's like, "I would do that too, to scare people off." And I was like,
go out and yell at the air.
What?
Well, yeah, because it's like, go on, get, stop playing with my Merle Haggard records.
And you're like, I did something.
Yeah.
All right. Are you ready? Are you ready to wed me now?
Yeah. Well, then his car's all jacked up, right? So he goes outside and then he's like, "Oh, well, they fucking beat the shit out of my car. That's nice." And then like he tries to get his phone or something and like all of that plays out. I can't remember all like the exact specifics, but it's just he still has this like very machismo, like, "Nothing's gonna bother me." And I'm just like, dude, you're stupid.
Yeah, he goes in to get his dad's gun and then fesses up that he doesn't know how to use it.
Yeah.
Which I was wondering if that was going to like go any further as far as like the relationship component, because she mentions like, "But you told me you went hunting with your dad." And he was like, "Yeah, I didn't." So like it's this odd scene. Yeah, it's this odd
He's
scene.
Like, that's just something I said.
Yeah, I think those were his exact words. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was just like, why would you just say that?
I wonder if they talked about it more in like the actual making of the movie, and then they were just like, "We're going to cut this out because it's boring."
Yeah. I mean,
yeah, because it seems like there could have been two films in this movie. One that was just an abrasive, like tension-filled movie, and the other where it's a like melodrama about this relationship kind of falling apart and everything. And instead they decided to kind of smash it together. And for me, it just kind of like anything that you feel like you want them to go down that road to expand upon, they don't.
Yep.
But yeah, when he's going through his car and stuff, they try to start it and everything to get out, which good on them. They're like, "Fuck this, we're leaving." And we see a big old Ford F-150 come revving up on them and smash the absolute living fuck out of the back of this poor Volvo.
Yeah, that's already got its tires slashed and everything else is wrecked in it. And they're somehow still allowing it to drive, and now they're not. So it was interesting to say the least.
Yep, it's after the truck scene is when the shotgun is acquired. So he knows that there's a shotgun in this house because his dad had one, and he finds it on top of a bookshelf. And then the bullets are just in a random box in another room, and they're just scouring up for these bullets. And he's literally just like, "I don't know how to put this thing together." And that's when she's like, "I thought you used to say you went hunting with your dad all the time." And like it's just something I used to say, or it's just something I said. It's such a shitty thing. It's like, yeah, there might be more that I've lied to you about.
Yeah. Well, and then the other part, this is the I called this like from a mile away, but when the friend shows up to pick him up and he goes into the house, like, you know, doing his thing or whatever. And
we're skipping a big part.
What are we skipping?
An axe through a door.
An axe through a door. Oh yeah, that's true.
Oh, the axe.
The axe. Yeah, sorry. That's not on my list here. So
it's not on mine either.
Yeah, it's just one of those things. Like, it's just like kind of going through it. The movie just kind of goes through the motions. Like, it's like, oh, car's fucked. Run inside, get the gun, and then they just start like in a Shining-esque scene. Just the strangers start cutting through the door with the axe, and he shoots through the door, and he's like, all right, I think I scared him off. Now continue.
Oh yeah, that's right. And then they go and they basically hold themselves up in another room, like ready to take on the world. And then the friend shows up, and then he's just going in the house to see what's going on. And there's a song, I believe, playing at this time. I could be wrong, but I believe there is, and it's because that's why he can't hear anything or whatever. Is that prison country song by the one you were talking about? And the lyrics of that song are really fucked up. It's like, my mama tried to keep me from going to prison, but I'm still a bad guy, like that kind of thing. And I was like, oh my God, this is terrible. And so just, you know, spoiler alert, we already know this because we're talking about things, but you know, he shoots his friend and he goes down, and I was like, I knew that was going to happen.
Yeah, you know that going in because the guy doesn't say anything. He did, like, who would walk into a house after seeing that beat up car and everything else and not go, hey,
yep,
is everything okay?
Yep.
Like, there's nothing. He's just asking for it at that point.
Yep.
You know something bad's gonna happen.
Yep.
He went in there expecting things because of the implications. As Dennis Reynolds would say, but yeah, he straight, like, it's messaged like so hard. You know it's gonna happen. So that's not, for me, that wasn't shocking. When he gets shot in the head with the shotgun.
That he doesn't know how to shoot. So
the build up to it, though, I really do like, with him walking down the hallway and the sack guy following him slowly with the axe. That is cool. And like, that is the stuff I wanted more of. But instead we get it. Dennis Reynolds, R.I.P. You know, we lost a good one that day. Gets his fucking face blown off with a shotgun that what's his name? James is just now learning how to use. He's doing pretty good. Headshot on a second shot. Not bad.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, it's a shotgun, but so Mike's dead. my notes from this point are just really bullet point, because at this point I'm like, all right, let's finish this movie. Like, I'm getting very
That's how I was too.
At the descent.
Yep.
We've hit.
Yep.
James gets snuck up on, knocked out basically.
Because at this point they're running to the barn, right? They're like, "Oh, the barn has a radio."
Did they say that?
I don't think
I think so.
I don't know if they said it, but I know that's what she goes in there and she does. Like, she can't find him. She goes in there, and I actually thought realistically that he was going to be strung up there. That's like classic horror movie, whatever. And I was actually wrong, so that was good. I was like, well, at least you didn't go down that route.
Again, just like in Oculus, I was hoping we were going to walk in there and he was gutted. So 0 out of 2 guttings. No,
one of these days, Nick, you'll get a gutting.
Throw up the counter.
Yeah.
We do get one in the second part of our double feature.
Yeah, that's true.
Finally happened.
Yep.
Oh, thank God.
More than one.
Yeah, but like I've got like Kristen runs and just fucking eats it in this ditch. Like Liv Tyler, if she did that stunt or whatever, I know that she screamed so much in this movie she gave herself laryngitis.
Oh,
and everything. And if like she was going fucking whole hog in this movie and shit, she ate it hard. Like, it looks really good. Also, to get her to react the way that the director wanted to, he would tell her, in this scene, something's going to happen to the left of you and everything. Be ready. And then he would make like an insanely loud sound to the right of her to get her shock out of it.
Yeah, like you expect the fall. Any woman running through a forest without her shoes on is bound to fall.
Yep.
But the way they did it was, that's cringy.
Yeah, because they kind of make it seem like she almost breaks her ankle or something. Because it's
or
like
her neck.
Steep drop and forward.
Yep.
But yeah, she gets to the barn and finds a shortwave radio. And I was like, oh, hell yeah. I haven't seen one of these in a long time. And she kind of gets some information out to somebody on there, but it's just like, help. She should have been just like, SOS, send the Marines, send everybody. But like, she's like, just
she's
kind of
so soft spoken in this entire movie.
Yeah.
I just think that's Liv Tyler. I think if she's screaming, it's a whisper.
Yeah.
Come and get him yourself.
Please.
Like,
please help me.
But yeah, after she finds the shortwave radio, it is quickly destroyed by, I believe it's Pinup Girl, I believe is the name they go by for this one. With an axe, you get all the sparks and everything. More running. She then sees that the car is now on fire. And then she goes in the house, and this girl cannot do anything quietly.
Nope.
Except talk.
Just,
yeah,
that's the only thing. Literally just smashing through everything in this fucking house. Knocking pictures off the wall and everything. But I believe this is where she sees Sack Man, not to be confused with Sack Boy from the PlayStation. I think I would like this movie better if it were Sack Boy running amok. But
this is the second movie we've watched with sack-faced people.
That's true. Yeah, trick or treat.
Oh, it is.
Trick or treat.
Trick or treat.
Yeah.
So that's Sack Boy. This is Sack Man. Although his name on the credits is Man in the Mask.
Man in the Mask.
Okay. It should be Man in the velour suit, because that was the most impressive thing. Like, his suit was just it.
He was dressed to the nines.
He was.
Terrorization.
Yeah, it's the only 9 in this film is that suit.
Yeah. Yeah.
I really do like the color grading, though. It really ties into the era. I think I do, because it goes back to the Sharon Tate thing. Like, it's based in it's based in the early aughts, but it has that feel of like the 70s.
Yeah.
Where everything's dingy.
Well, even the masks have that feel a little bit to them.
Yeah.
Well, the director said that the masks that he chose for the film, he wanted them to be something that you could specifically just pick up at a store. Yeah. To show that this isn't like some meticulously put together thing. This is a group of people that just picked up some shit and went to town. And it does have that feel. Like, that's the one thing that not the one thing. There's things in this movie that I do like. I mean, I'm ripping it apart and everything. But the things that it does really well, I think it does amazingly well. Like the music cues, the masks and stuff like that. But what was I going to say? Yeah, from this, you can totally see a line, though, that can be drawn from The Strangers to then, I'm not sure how many years later. So if this was in 2008, it was probably like 2012 or so. The Purge comes out, and it definitely lifts a lot of the home invasion. Not that The Strangers invented the home invasion film, but just like the feel and the masks and everything of this, because even though the director has said that this movie is not a remake of a previous film and things like that, there definitely is a French movie called Them. In French, it's called Ills, that came out, and I believe it was 2006. That is almost this identical movie. The only difference is it's not 3 masked individuals, it's school children that are doing it. And it's a far more intense film. So if you French. If you like it, it came out in like the new French extreme era where you were getting like High Tension and Inside and Martyrs and stuff like that. But if you like Strangers, but you wish it had a little more oomph, definitely check out Them. But if you love this movie, you love this movie. There's no right or wrong answer.
Yeah.
Well, let's get into the ending.
Yep.
So she's wandering around the house. She sees the sack man and the power's cut. So she decides to hide in the pantry. And the sack man sits down, kind of hangs out, looks at the ice cream a little bit that's been laying out and everything, and then goes wandering off. So you're expecting him to just come burst into the door where she's at. It doesn't happen, but somebody else does. I think it's Dollface, maybe. Dollface comes bursting through the door, tries to pull her out and everything. Almost gets her, then backs off. Kristen comes walking out.
Why? Why does she walk out?
No idea. Just like at this point, like just fucking kill him. Like it just keeps just dragging it on with nothing. There's nothing getting built here. It's just extending the length. It feels like they're just trying to pad out the time almost, because this movie's almost 2 hours, and it could have been an hour and a half, probably.
Yeah.
And probably given us better character stuff too, because there are a lot of long hanging shots. Some of them are good. Most of them aren't, though, in my opinion. But boyfriend James gets thrown through. She's asking, why are you doing this? Why are you doing this?
Best part of the movie.
Oh, when they're tied to the chair?
The line right here, when you said, okay, why are you doing this? And for Dollface to just go, because you were home. I love that.
You love that line?
I love that line.
I like the idea of that there isn't motivation, that it is just chaos and stuff like that. But by the time that line is delivered in the film, I'm like, fucking roll the credits.
It got me back into it because and I also like the cut of the man in the mask dragging her out. So it's another quiet scene. It's another vulnerable scene where it could have been loud and whatever, but you see that she got knocked out, and then it's just him dragging her unconscious body, which I thought was a good touch.
To which she awakes to them tied in the chairs in front of the 3 masked individuals. I believe this is the first time that you see all 3 of them at once, and they're just standing over them. And again, could have just ended it right there.
Well, then they remove their masks, right? So they take them off. We don't see them, but they reveal themselves to the characters. So I thought that was kind of cool, because then they're like, here, you're going to see me before I kill you, basically. And that's kind of how it plays out. I mean, in a way, I guess. This movie doesn't have I guess it has a semi-happy ending, but
I was hoping 2 things in this movie when you're seeing everything kind of going down. So the first time you see Sackman, that's his name to me, James is nowhere around, so it kind of sets you up to think, is he Sackman? Is he going through doing this stuff? And then at the end of the film, we don't get any other characters really, other than Mike, who is literally in this movie for fucking 2 minutes before he gets his face blown off. Yeah. But if we would have seen some people at the wedding party and stuff like that, and then those were the 3 individuals that were killing these people, I think that would have been a neat reveal. Like them taking off the masks, seeing the realization. It works in the sense where it's just some people doing some shit, but at a 2 hour, I think it's an hour and 51 minutes, it just kind of drags on. And when that's your payoff, I just kind of left wanting a lot more.
Well, then when they're leaving, the other thing is they do all of this. You don't know exactly who's alive and who's dead. They don't actually show you anything. And then they're driving away in their truck, and then they stop and they talk to these Christian boys, which you see at the beginning of the film, which is the voiceover that's from the 911. So this is a complete circle around from the beginning, and they come back, and they're the ones that find them, which in the first part of the movie. But it just, and then she just screams when she wakes up, because she's laying on the floor or whatever, and it was just that's how we're ending this film. Really?
I wish it would have stopped when you're just seeing the backs of their heads in the pickup truck, like driving off.
I agree.
That was it could have ended there and been great.
Well, show us the kids and then that's it.
Yeah. To know that it goes full circle.
Yeah.
I think I was thinking, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, end the film when James goes to get cigarettes and he never comes back.
I didn't like the part where she bursts back awake, but I could see that going really well in theaters. Like, the makers may not have wanted it to be just a quiet ending where people shuffle out of the theater. You have this big one last adrenaline rush, then the lights come on and the viewers are most likely like laughing or talking more about it. Possibly. So I don't think that translates at home.
No.
But
no, I mean, if you are jump scared, like if you're easily jump scared, I can see it working and stuff like that. That stuff does not work for me at all.
I am extremely easily jump scared. And at that point I was like, nah, okay.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh, I got some films for you if you're easily jump scared.
Dude, you know this about me.
It's so exciting.
I am one of the most reactive people when it comes to watching movies. Send them all my way. I love them.
Well, we'll be watching quite a few.
Yeah.
So that was The Strangers from 2008. On a scale of 1 to 10 sack men, man sacks. No, sack men.
No, don't do that.
Yeah, don't. That's bad.
No. Zero man sacks.
Yeah.
Natasha, what do you give The Strangers?
So I have two different ratings. I think it's really recommendable, but it doesn't hit the same the second time you watch it. So the rewatchability of it is lower for me. But if we're looking at recommending it mainly, I'm going to give it a 7.75.
7.75. So we're going.
She's going
Uber fractions.
Yeah.
I feel like 7.5 wasn't good enough, but I don't necessarily think I would take it to great. Well, because of that, how we have our bracket broken down, repeat viewing. Well, I mean, I've already watched it multiple times, so I'm talking myself into an 8.
You're giving it an 8?
We're gonna give it a straight 8.
Straight 8. All right. Damn. All right. Steph, what do you give The Strangers?
You guys don't want to ask this question.
Oh, I do.
Oh, yeah. Let's do it.
Okay. So, again, let's just preface this by remembering I did not know anything about this movie, and I don't have a lot of experience with home invasion movies. I think I've watched maybe a handful of them over the years, so it's not really my genre. That being said, I did not like this movie. The music was the only part of this movie and the lighting was the only two things that I felt were redeeming qualities. I'm a huge Liv Tyler fan. I loved her in Armageddon. She was great as Arwen in the Lord of the Rings series, but her acting was great in this, but the storyline was just so lacking. There was minimal plot and it was just very blah to me. And so I gave it a 4-star. I felt like it was just not good. Like, I would never rewatch this. I would not recommend it. I don't think that it was pleasing to watch. I was waiting for it to end. Like, I was like, are we done yet? Are we done yet? And if a movie's going to do that to me, I'm just like, I can't. Like, when we watched Oculus, because I hadn't experienced that, I was at least entertained through the entire movie. And I could really like resonate with some of it, like understand it and kind of that kind of thing. And this movie just kind of left me going, they had no motive. It was boring. It's a 4.
I give this movie, so I'm giving it a full point for its music cues, because I like that, like little, the little bits where it's skipping and everything. It works for that. The oppressive nature of the silence from time to time, I really like that. The set of the house, so all the outside shots are shot on location at a house. Everything inside that house is actually on a soundstage and everything. I thought that was kind of neat. The makeup director, like the special effects and stuff, how minimal there are when Mike does get shot, it looks good. The masks are very ominous looking. It's acted well, but to kind of reiterate, runs way too long for what it is. Lacking of plot. The beginning like sets up, it's like kind of all right, this like proposal gone wrong thing, but then that doesn't feel like anything once stuff happens. It doesn't, it just, you could have cut that out at the beginning of the film and it would have been the same movie. Like that does not play out anything in this movie, in my opinion.
I will say it like as a whole, I don't think it does, but for me at least, I started to feel like I got like sad and it was slow. So it set me up like sensory wise in a different spot than what at least for me, what you're expecting a horror movie to start you off as. Like I was getting emotional because it was like heartbreaking is how sad it was. And then then the knocking starts and then you're just completely flipped emotionally, which I thought was like, it's something I haven't seen done before. But then, yeah, it has nothing to do with the storyline.
If the film was tightened up and which we didn't even really talk about, the final killing of the two, which is the most lackluster, it's like a stab and like the
and you
slow,
hear it.
Yeah, but it's not, it's so, this sounds horrible. It's so boring.
I agree.
And everything.
Agreed.
And, like if that were a lot more tense at that time, it would have worked better in my opinion, because she does say, she's like, I love you. And like, there's a point where you see that she's wearing the ring and all that stuff because she can't take it off. She puts it on and she can't take it off. She's not wearing it because she changed her mind. She was going to take that shit off and it's stuck. So
I didn't notice that.
Yeah, she goes to take it off and she's like,
ah.
So like, it could have done a lot better. I like the premise of it, but for me, it's a swing and a miss. I've seen this film a few times. When it first came out, I did like this movie. I would have given it probably an extra 2 stars for what I'm giving it now. I am giving this 5.5 sack men out of 10. If you haven't seen it and you're just looking for something that you can cut it, there's not a lot of narrative, there's not a lot of storyline going on. You want something to play in the background that maybe you haven't seen, I guess it's worth that. If it was on TV, I'd watch it again, but I'm not going to pull it out and put it in the Blu-ray player or whatever. So what does that give us, Tasha, for our total score for The Strangers?
I seemingly have forgotten how to do math. This is saying
the poor children that go to your school.
I was just doing the average and it's coming out as 5.83 and that doesn't sound right.
That sounds about right. 5.83 is what we give The Strangers. Well, would it be like a 58%? Is that what we're talking about here?
I think so. Hold on.
Do you want me to do the math? It's very simple.
I know, and I've done it for weeks. What is happening? Check my math.
All right, here we go.
I am mathed out. We went to an escape room last night, and the entire thing was math related, and I seem to have forgotten how to do basic.
Yes, blame family time. That's the way. Blame it on the child. I see. You're just you picked up this from the movie, just gaslighting.
I don't know what I fessed up. I said I didn't know what I was doing. I just gave an excuse as to why I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah, I think it's like 58%.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's failing.
Not good. Ooh.
But
it's definitely one that I would watch again. I would not pay for it. There we go.
Yeah, we paid.
And I won't watch it again. There's no way.
We're gonna call Amazon and request our money back.
That's that this movie is within the that framework that I really like. I really like home invasion movies. So anything that falls into that.
Okay.
Oh, do you?
I like home invasion stuff too. It's just one of those things that
as far as they go.
Yeah, this doesn't even hold a flame to not to harp on the French, but they've got a couple that are amazing. Like there's them, and then there's another one called what is it? In Their Sleep. And that one fucked me up. Straight up fucked me up for days.
We're gonna write that one down.
Yeah, it's hard to find. It's called In Their Sleep. It used to be on some streaming services. Now it's kind of a lost to the winds of time. But all right. So going on to our second feature of our double feature, we have, drumroll please, Scream from 1996. This is a very important film to me.
Yay!
So Scream 1996. Steph, what's your history with this film?
So we were talking about this last night. Nick and I are the same age. So we were 10 when this movie came out. And I know both of us probably saw it like right after it came out. And I remember because that was like the age group where you're like, my parents didn't care what movies I watched, whatever they were. So I got on this kick of like, I'm going to watch all these scary movies. And that was one of the ones I watched. And it scared the crap out of me as a kid. I don't know why, because we just rewatched it. And it's probably been at least 20 years since I've seen it. So it's been a long time. So this is a good refresher. But it hit a lot of parts that I was very surprised that it held up. So especially for being that old.
I was 7 when it came out, and I also saw it. And there's no way I would let Wyatt watch this movie as an 8-year-old. I would not let my son watch this, but of the same era, parents didn't really seem to. Hell, mom may have shown it to us.
Yeah, that's how mine was.
Yeah.
I think we were raised in a house where horror was like, that's why I am the way I am. Is our mother was a horror fan, or is a horror fan rather. Our grandmother was a horror fan. I remember going to our grandmother's house on weekends and stuff, and literally just going to, I believe it was West Coast Video, and just piling up some of the most heinous horror films I have ever seen in my life. And just grandma being like, you want to get Chinese food? We're going to watch these, and watching Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer, and like all of these like horrific horror films, and just breaking my psyche like instantly. Probably at the age of like 2. Yeah. It was later than that, but
Shout
that's what it
Grandma
felt
Headley.
like.
Yeah.
But Scream was not. Yeah, shout out to Grandma Headley. Well, not to bring it down or anything, but like when she passed away, like I got her movie collection, and she had some fucked up movies in that collection.
Always
like,
had court TV on.
In there.
That's where my love of true crime came from. Your love of horror. Fantastic. But yeah, the thought that I watched this when I was 7 is just mind boggling. And yes, it terrified me then.
I didn't watch it with Grandma. I probably watched it with you the same time. Mom probably got it because I know Mom was a fan of like Nightmare on Elm Street and stuff like that. This is Wes Craven. He is the creator of the original Nightmare on Elm Street and stuff like that. So she probably was aware of that. They probably used that as some marketing and everything. But yeah, this was definitely one of the horror films that I'd seen stuff prior to this. You know, like I'd seen like Silence of the Lambs and things like that. But this was the first new horror film that wasn't Friday the 13th, and it was this new franchise, and it came out, and it definitely imprinted on me. Not that it's like my favorite horror film of all time or anything like that, but like when it comes to slashers, it's damn near perfect in my opinion. I'm not trying to say that it's like a 10 out of 10 or anything like that, but like as far as slashers are concerned and everything, and for the time and when I saw it and everything, I saw this movie a million times when I was a kid. So this was also the first time that I'd seen it in a while. I mean, I did start watching it like a month ago, maybe. Got like halfway through it. I was watching it with Sydney, our daughter, who is actually named after Sidney Prescott. So like when I'm saying that this movie like imprinted on me, that was something that like, you know, Sidney Prescott's my final girl, and Sydney is named after her. So it was definitely a big deal for me. But yeah, so let's get into it a bit on Scream. I actually have some interesting notes for this one that really kind of will make you open your eyes at how much of a, not just a star-studded cast that this movie had, because everybody that you see in this movie were very early in their careers. So it wasn't star-studded yet. It did have a few people in it that were kind of red herrings and stuff, like Drew Barrymore being in it and stuff like that, and being prominently put on the poster. No spoilers yet if you haven't seen this, but is interesting. And then Henry Winkler, the Fonz being in this, was actually he actually asked for his name to not be put in the movie because he didn't want to overshadow the young talent and stuff. And he actually goes uncredited, I believe, in this movie. Like, his name is not attached to it at all. And it's not because fuck this movie, I don't want anything to do with it. It's because he wanted the younger talent to shine, which is extremely cool.
What's another reason to love him? Because I just adore him.
I know.
What a stand-up guy.
Yeah.
But Scream is a 1996 American slasher film directed by Wes Craven and written by Kevin Williamson. Okay, so little backstory on these two guys. Wes Craven, horror royalty. Films and franchises he is known for directing or writing and creating. So, Nightmare on Elm Street, Scream, The People Under the Stairs, The Hills Have Eyes, Last House on the Left, Red Eye, The Serpent and the Rainbow. Like, all of these, like, hell, like just Scream alone is enough to make you like horror royalty. But then to be like, oh yeah, Nightmare on Elm Street as well, and oh yeah, The Hills Have Eyes. Like, these are crazy like accolades for this guy to have. And then you have the writer of the film, Kevin Williamson. Get this. His notable works of writing. He wrote Scream. He wrote I Know What You Did Last Summer.
That makes sense.
He wrote Dawson's Creek.
Okay.
They all fit.
He wrote The Faculty.
Okay. There's another one.
I don't know that one.
And then he wrote the Vampire Diaries television series. He didn't write the book.
Love that show.
So yeah, he very prolific writer in like the horror and teenage genre, like Dawson's Creek, and it was like that was the kids version of like Friends or something. Like, not Friends, because Friends was comedy, but like it was this like will they won't they show, and you had like Party of Five and stuff. And
yeah, but like The Faculty, I Know What You Did Last Summer, and Scream, all of those kind of fit in the same exact like lineup of horror type movies, and they're all very, I mean, obviously The Faculty, if you guys haven't seen it, I'm not going to say anything majorly about it, but like it has more of a supernatural element to it, but you're definitely running in the same like kind of teenage feel and like just the visuals and stuff. I did not know that, so I'm like, that makes sense because I like all of those movies.
And watching it as I'm older, it seemed like I was thinking like Scream has like a Dawson's Creek, The Breakfast Club vibe meets horror. So that's hilarious that he actually wrote Dawson's Creek. Very cool.
Yeah, when I was like doing research and stuff for that, I was like, holy shit, are you serious? Because it was like, Scream, obviously. And then it's like, I Know What You Did Last Summer. I was like, it makes sense. And then Dawson's Creek, I'm like, hold the phone. But yeah, and then when I saw Vampire Diaries, I was like, oh, Steph's going to love this.
Yeah, I mean, he's brilliant if he wrote that, because that series does not follow the books like it's supposed to. So he definitely took liberties with that. So yeah, I love that show. It's so good.
I was a huge Dawson Creek fan when I was younger.
See?
Were you?
Yeah.
Oh,
I remember summers of just binge watching Dawson's Creek over summer break on Lifetime.
I must have been high at the time or something. I don't know.
Probably.
It was the time when you and I weren't friends. So.
Oh yeah, like
most of our
childhood. That stop now.
Hey. Ouch.
So, a little talk about Williams, because I believe that Wes Craven gets his flowers a lot, and he passed away, I believe it was in 2015. He was my first favorite horror director. So, but Williams was a struggling writer at the time, and he was inspired by the reports of a series of murders by the Gainesville Ripper, as he wrote the screenplay that satirized the cliches of the slasher genre popularized by such films as Halloween, Friday the 13th, and Nightmare on Elm Street. Developed under the title Scary Movie, Williams' script became the subject of an intense bidding war for multiple studios before Miramax purchased the rights. Despite turning down the opportunity multiple times, Craven agreed to direct the film after reading the script and being disappointed by the failure of his last movie, Vampire in Brooklyn, which stars Eddie Murphy as a vampire.
I remember that movie. I actually liked that when I was a kid, but I am guaranteeing you that probably does not hold up anymore.
It's not bad. Like, I mean, it's no Scream or Nightmare on Elm Street, but I mean, it's not bad.
A Vampire in Brooklyn, my lord. Okay.
But yeah, so do you guys think we should throw up the spoiler warning for our double feature to finish out the episode?
Yep.
Yes, sir.
All right. Spoiler warning. Spoiler warning. All right. You've been warned. If you haven't seen Scream 1996, why?
Where have you been?
Yeah.
Yeah. Unless you're a kid and it just has gone over your head. If you're our age, if you're a millennial, yeah, you've seen this movie.
You better have.
So better to have.
If we watched it at 7 and 10, there's no excuse.
Exactly.
Yeah, pussy.
Yeah.
All right. So,
Anyway.
spoiler warning. Here we go. So we get a cold open of Drew Barrymore, big 90s star of lot of stuff. I mean, prior to this, like, she was in Firestarter when she was a little kid. She was in, I believe, in E.T. when she was a little kid. Like, Hollywood royalty in a way. I'm hit or miss with her. But at this time she was a big name. Like, so she's at home, making popcorn, gonna watch some scary movies and stuff, just kind of hanging out. And we get our initial phone call on the phone, and it's a man that she does not know asking just kind of, hey, what are you up to, kind of questions, kind of trying to get to know her. It's like, what are you up to? She's like, oh, I'm gonna have some popcorn and watch scary movies. Like, oh, you like scary movies? And this line has just kind of, it is the call sign for this movie. Like, just like with the Saw movies, like, do you want to play a game? Like, that kind of stuff. Like, it's just, so they start chit-chatting a little bit, and she ends up hanging up on him because he starts getting a little too... the first time she hangs up on him, I can't remember what the reasoning is. Is it that it's not the gut you like a fish part, is it?
No, that's like the third time.
Yeah. What? So why does...
I think at this one, she's just like, okay, bye.
Yeah.
Like, I'm done talking to you now. This is weird. Like,
oh yeah, because I think he's like, I want to know who I'm looking at or whatever, and she's kind of weirded out, and she's like, all right, bye. Calls back, starts like, why'd you hang up on me? Like, all this kind of stuff starts getting a little more, and it just keeps escalating to the point where he's just like, if you hang up this phone, I'll gut you like a fish. Which
that's when
always kills me every single time. Like, he gets to that degree, because he's just like, hey, what's going on? But like, his voice is a little down and everything. It's just like, oh, that's interesting. What? Oh. And then he just kind of like, what did you say about my mother?
You're hurting my pride.
Yeah, that's what this whole movie is generally about. It's just a character whatever, I'm not gonna say. They just, their pride's just consistently hurt. Like, that's
spoiler.
I know, but I don't want to. I don't want to share everything yet. We're getting there. So,
in the first 10 minutes of this film, you get an entire horror movie. You have Drew Barrymore chilling at home, popcorn going, calls on the phone. She even makes a line where when she's talking about the horror films and stuff, she's like, oh yeah, I love horror films. My favorite, because he asks like, what's your favorite scary movie?
Oh, yeah.
Probably Nightmare on Elm Street. The first one. The other ones kind of suck. The first one's the only one that Wes Craven directed.
Oh, nice. A little tip of the hat.
And I guess that that was written in the script and everything, and he didn't want that. And Williams was like, no, seriously, that's what horror fans would say, because the first one is actually the only good one. Which, I mean, I don't agree with, but 3 of them, I would say, are like legit good, and 2 of them Wes Craven directed. So,
wait, say that again.
So I think there's like, of the original films, I think there's like 7 movies, maybe 8.
Oh, wow.
And of those, there are 3 good movies.
2 of the good movies are Wes Craven movies.
Correct.
Gotcha.
In my opinion, it's the original one, and then Wes Craven's New Nightmare, which definitely has a lot of interesting ties to this movie, because it has a lot of the meta, like being self-aware kind of stuff, because in that movie, Freddy Krueger is actually in our world, and he's terrorizing the actors and actresses of the original film.
Oh.
So it's probably my favorite, but it's also like probably the first one that I saw like on my own. But so she's kind of looking around and everything, and he's brings up the fact that gonna play a game with her, because she says that she's got a big football boyfriend that's gonna come and kick your ass, and he says his name wouldn't be Steve by chance, would it?
What?
Whoa! And yeah, she's like, what? In her best Butters impersonation. He's like, turn on the back porch lights. And you see Steve beat the fuck up, strapped to a chair, and Drew Barrymore's just completely beside herself and everything. Now, this is something I find kind of interesting, is I was reading that Wes Craven knew that Drew Barrymore is an avid animal rights activist and stuff like that. And she had just told him this story about this dog that was like horribly abused and I believe like caught on fire or something, but survived, I believe. But like when she was telling the story, she started to cry. So he used that to his advantage. And anytime he needed her to cry in a scene, he would just kind of quote part of that story that she told him, and she would instantly just start sobbing.
Oh my gosh. Well, the best
good direction, but a terrible way.
Exactly. Well, my favorite part of the scene though is when like Steve's tied up out back and she's standing at the door looking at it. She goes to go help him, and the guy on the phone's like, "Don't do that." And like that's where like the comedy comes into play. Is like you're running into that like your stereotypical slasher film play out, and I just thought that was hilarious. I loved it so much.
Yeah, they do a lot with this that kind of it plays into a lot of the tropes, but then it also bucks a lot of them. Specifically, my part of the reason I do love this movie is watching Ghostface get the ever living shit beat out of him all the time.
All the time.
Yeah,
makes me laugh every time.
Yep.
Beer bottle to the face. I'm your Huckleberry. It's good.
Yep.
But yeah, so he starts saying, all right, like we'll play a game, and if you win, you're free to go. So we're going to do a practice round. Ask her a question about Halloween. She answers it correctly. He's like, okay, now on to the real game. And she fucks up because it's not a trick question, but if you know the Friday the 13th movies, you think it's Jason is always the killer, but the original one is his mother. Gets her. So Steve's not making it on to the next round. And we finally get...
Nick gets what he wants.
Yep.
Finally, we get a man gutted. Steve, guts spilled out into his lap. This movie was actually about to get an NC-17 rating for some of the gore in this movie, which is super funny considering how movies went in the next 10 years. Mm-hmm. Hostel was only like 10 years from this. So, yeah, this scene was supposed to be a lot longer. There was supposed to be a lot, like you were supposed to actually see the entrails fall out of him and stuff like that, I guess. So I would have been like, yeah, Steve, do it.
Yep.
Do the gut stuff. But again, I'll take what I can get. I can take these scraps. It's cool. So we see that happen. The next question is then, what door am I at? And she's what? And we get chair through the window, I believe, and we're off to the races. She's running around. You get like the almost like Psycho theme kind of mixed in there a little bit, where it's like all that kind of stuff. She's running around. Oh no, she forgot the popcorn's on. House starting to fill with smoke, and she gets out of the house. Yeah, pure chaos. And this is all like within the first like 10 minutes or so of the movie, 10, 15 minutes.
Yep.
She's kind of hanging out. She looks in the house. She sees Ghostface kind of looking around the house and everything. Now she's something that I find peculiar. She's holding the phone right there the whole time. I didn't think of it the first time or the first 100 times that I watched this movie, but I'm like, why isn't he just calling that phone to find her? Because it's going to ring. And if she's holding it, like it'll just be like a beacon or whatever.
But it was on the whole time.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, because then we go in and she's standing there. Then he finds her and like he tackles her to the ground, and we have this fight ensue basically. And when her parents come home, because they're the car that's driving up the alley, and the smoke's filling the house, and they're trying to find her because the house is in shambles and all of this stuff, and she's outside dying literally. And her mom picks up the phone to call her to figure out, and she's on the line, like breathing heavily and like screaming. And like, can you imagine though? Like that actually teared me up last night because I'm a mom now. And I'm like, oh my God, that would be so horrible to have to hear your child dying on the freaking phone. Like that's horrible.
Yeah.
That is a heartbreaking scene. Like when he stabs her and he like she kind of kicks him a bit, and he just starts to strangle her. So it sets up the fact that like her voice box is kind of fucked up because he's trying to strangle her. So she sees her parents walking in the house, and she goes to yell, and it's just like crackly, like Mom.
Yep.
And like that is so heartbreaking to me because I'm like, oh no,
so close.
Yep.
Yeah, because I'm a mom too, and it just really gets me.
Yeah.
But yeah, then he just starts going to town, stabbing her and everything. The husband tells the wife to, go to the neighbor's house. We're going to find out what's happening. She walks out the door, and there's Drew Barrymore strung up in a tree, hanging, stabbed, dead,
Horrible.
Booms. Yep. Scream. And like, I don't remember the title looking that horrible. Like it just looks like bad typeface, like it just scream. It's like, oh, okay. I don't remember. I remember the title that you see on the posters. I don't remember that.
Yeah. And now
then enters.
Go ahead, honey.
Oh, then enters Sidney Prescott.
Yep. It's like, well, we're just going to throw you in for a loop, and now we're just going to keep you on this exact same trajectory the entire movie.
Yeah. And now it's another common thing of, oh, my dad's leaving.
Yep.
That type of thing.
Yep.
It almost seems like two separate movies when it jumps to that right away. You don't really know if they're connected, which I thought was kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it definitely the cold opening in this film is unmatched in a way. Like a lot of films like copied it and stuff after and everything, but it is perfect in the sense of setting you up for like, all right, here we go. Mm-hmm. This is the movie.
Yeah.
Sidney Prescott is played by Neve Campbell. It's interesting. I've got like a lot of different people that they had for like they wanted for different roles and stuff. And one of them that turned this role down was Reese Witherspoon.
Okay.
She was going to play Sidney Prescott.
Mm-mm.
And another one that I've got here, being a favorite of screenwriter Kevin Williams, Molly Ringwald from The Breakfast Club was offered the role of Sidney Prescott, but turned it down, saying she'd rather not be playing high school students at the age of 27.
That's fair.
So yeah, we see her, and Billy Loomis comes busting through the window, played by Skeet Ulrich, who was also this role was turned down by a young Joaquin Phoenix.
Okay.
Their resemblance is, I think they look a lot alike. At least in my memory, I see.
I really like Steph's wording of Skeet Ulrich as Billy Loomis in this.
Okay, so if you think about the time that this movie is like the 96s, right? So he is the Wish version of Johnny Depp, like hands down. He has like the hair and like that vibe and everything that Johnny Depp does during that time. And he just doesn't quite make it.
Well, what's really funny about that is this scene is very reminiscent of Johnny Depp's scene in the opening of Nightmare on Elm Street, directed by Wes Craven, where he sneaks into his girlfriend's bedroom in that film. So
they should have just asked Johnny Depp to play this role, because I think I probably would have liked it more, but it's fine.
Could you imagine if Johnny Depp played him in this film? Like I think it would have, like, the aging might have been a little off. I think he would have looked a little old for the role and whatnot. But could you imagine him in this role the way it goes? Like, I think it would have been fucking
I can see it, yeah.
Badass.
Yeah. Well, I think this was like the time that, like, did he make Sleepy Hollow around this time? And like, I don't know. I'd have to look and see what his filmography is at that time. Let me look, or Tasha can look.
But yeah, Billy says it, like, some of the weird, like, he has some of the weirdest dialogue in this because he's always bringing up horror films, which I understand. I do that too, but not in these ways. He's like, The Exorcist was on and got me thinking about you.
Yeah.
Which I'm like, what? Like, I understand the way they go about it in this conversation because he's talking about things being cut out for TV and he's trying to get in her pants and all this stuff. And like, we used to be hot and heavy and all this stuff. But like, it's so fucking weird. Be like, so I saw this child throwing up pea soup and it got me thinking about your butt.
Anyway, Sleepy Hollow came out in 99. So it was around that time. But he was also doing Fear and Loathing.
Fear and Loathing's awesome.
The Ninth Gate came out around that time. So he was busy. He was busy doing some big stuff.
So they're doing their whole thing up in the bedroom and everything. Dad comes in. He's like, I thought I heard a scream. Basically gives a little expositional dialogue of that I'm leaving and I'll be going like out of town and if you need me, I'll be at this hotel and yada, yada, yada and everything. And then they kind of talk a little bit more. She shows her boobs, but we don't get to see them.
Stupid.
Yeah. It's like, would you go for a PG-13 relationship? And I always think that, I don't know what movie it is that makes me think this, but I always think that when he sees her tits that he like is like whoa, and falls out of the window. And it doesn't happen. I think I've seen Scary Movie once. I don't know if it happens in that or something, but like that's what I expected, and then it didn't happen and I was like, oh well, I guess I didn't direct this film. So then we cut to the next day. We're at the high school and there's police around, and in walks Courtney Cox as Gail Weathers.
I don't remember her being that horrible until this movie. And then, my gosh, like she's like in Friends at this point. Like Friends is like a pretty popular show playing. And I remember like watching the show and being like, oh, I really like her as Monica on the show. And then I was rewatching it now and I'm like, she's kind of an asshole in this show, like way more than I anticipated.
She specifically wanted this role because she wanted to play a bitch.
Oh,
yeah.
No joke.
That's
like
awesome.
she was like, I play such a likable character of Monica in Friends, and that right there was the reasoning that they almost didn't give it to her because she was too likable. So she was like, no, I want to play a ruthless bitch.
But she's not likable in Friends technically, because she's like the crazy lady,
super type A.
Yeah, exactly. So people find her obnoxious. So she's kind of a different version of obnoxious in this one. It was interesting. Like I didn't expect that.
She is straight up like what you think of like dirt sheet, like tabloid writer.
Yeah.
Like straight up chasing the ambulance kind of character. But you see her, and then Rose McGowan shows up. I did not write her name down. It's like Tatum, I think.
Yep.
Tatum, and she's talking to Sydney, and kind of references like, this is the craziest thing that's happened and since that old crime. Like, just kind of references a little bit, but doesn't want to talk too much. So you're kind of like, there must be more going on than we're being informed of. And we get to meet at this point, Sydney gets taken into the office to just kind of have some questioning and stuff. And we see the Fonz in all of his glory. And Deputy, I don't have his last name. I don't give a shit. I call him Deputy Dewey all the time. Dewey, who I love him in this movie.
It's Arquette of some sort. I can't remember his first name.
Yeah, it's
David Arquette.
His real name is David Arquette.
Yeah, it's David Arquette. But I love him in this movie. Like, even when like he has like these missteps of like the dialogue doesn't really work out perfectly, it's just, I love him in this movie.
He's such an endearing character.
I was going to say the same thing. Yes,
so sweet.
Agreed.
He read for the roles of Billy Loomis and Stu before getting this. So like,
no,
I could only imagine.
No.
Stu, I couldn't see him as Stu.
No.
Well, we'll get to it when Stu shows up, but there's kind of an interesting story of like how that kind of worked out. But so yeah, get some questioning and stuff, and at this time they're starting to set up the who done it with like some eye looks and stuff because oh my god, why am I forgetting his name? His name's not actually the Fonz, it's Henry Winkler. Henry Winkler is like weirdly kind of touchy when talking to Sydney and stuff, like kind of like caresses her chin. It's like, now would that be okay? Like, they're just going to ask you some questions, and the sheriff kind of gives them some like weird side eye and stuff. So you're kind of set up in a way like this motherfucker, the one out here dicing up people, which I would have loved Ghostface just like riding in on a motorcycle in a leather jacket.
Well, he also is like, all of his actions, like even when he's on the speaker for the school and everything, it's overplayed, like it's highly intense. So you're kind of like, is he overcompensating? What's going on? Like, is he just one of those people who just cares? He just cares, kind of like he does in The Waterboy. He just cares. Mm-hmm. Like, so I don't know.
And after this scene, we cut to basically our main cast sitting by the fountain, I believe, just kind of hanging out, having lunch. This is when we are introduced. We see Billy, we see Sydney, we see Tatum, and we are now introduced to Stu, who is played by Matthew Lillard, who is Tatum's boyfriend. And we meet Randy, who's played by Jamie Kennedy. All of these people, I feel bad for Skeet Ulrich because every single person in their roles besides him at this point kill it. They are so memorable, and Skeet Ulrich plays I guess if you're playing a sociopath like kind of person that very detached and everything, I guess he's doing a good job. But like Jamie Kennedy as Randy like calls him out so many times. So like, you're telling me that guy's not a killer? Like, he plays it like that. And yeah.
Can we talk about how like dead on the archetypes are in this movie too? Because at this point we're starting to feel how self-aware everyone is about the role of horror movies. And that's my favorite part of this movie, is that undertone going across the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
I really like how it's so spelled out. Like, this is one where it's all spelled out to you, but you expect that in a Scream movie. So for me, that was perfect. It was perfectly done.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I don't feel any of the films after this one even come close to holding a candle to this, because they are walking down the path that this one has already laid out.
Mm-hmm.
Some people like our daughter Sydney really like 5 is her favorite. That's her Scream.
Yeah.
Steph, I believe you said you remember the second one being like your favorite, like growing up and stuff.
I think so, but I actually kind of want to go back and watch it just to see, because like if I remember, like this movie kind of just gives you a taste and then you kind of build more on the plot that ends in this movie and builds it into the next one with like the cotton weary concept.
Yeah, because the end of the screenplay, when Williamson wrote it, there was a 7-page added part at the very end, which was the overview for the second film. So cool. It was already planned out from the word go. And when this movie did the mad business that it did, they obviously greenlit a sequel. So we didn't really talk about that in the beginning of this, but I have it here.
Yeah, what was the budget of this film?
It made $173 million.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
The second
a budget of $15 million with a box office of $173 million.
That's insane.
It came out 5 days before Christmas. So you would have been 11, I would have been 10.
Oh yes.
I still would have been 7.
Yeah. That's crazy.
Interestingly enough, number 2, the sequel grossed $172 million.
Yeah.
Which to me, I think is really shocking, being a sequel and still doing just as well.
That's true.
Yeah, because it's usually like it either like grows exponentially because of like the VHS market at the time, and then everybody has to go see the second one, or it just bombs. But the fact that it's like almost equal is very interesting.
Yeah. And we're talking the millions of dollars it made during the 90s. We're not talking now. Like the amount of money that is now is crazy. I mean, obviously movies didn't come out like nowadays either, because we didn't have streaming back then, but I'm kind of impressed. That's pretty awesome.
It basically reinvigorated Hollywood's interest in horror films, because from this point on, when this film came out, is when everybody wanted a Williamson script. You know, that's where you get The Faculty. That's where you get, you know, I Know What You Did Last Summer, all that stuff. And then you get urban legends. You get like all these movies, boom, 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 coming out that just, we need a group of teenagers and we need an iconic killer. But anyway, so this is when they're talking about the killing and all that stuff at the like lunchtime, kind of at the fountain. And it's at this time that if you've seen the movie before, you're able to actually just go like, I'm seeing behind the curtain a little bit, because there's certain things being said and you're seeing the interactions between Billy and Stu kind of showing their cards a little bit, like, shut up. Like, why would you do that? And giving knowing looks and stuff. If you've never seen this movie, though, it completely goes over your head.
True.
Like, it's so expertly done how they piece this stuff together. Oh my goodness. Tasha, you could have just said that.
I felt like the time had passed, but I still wanted you guys to know. It's 334. That can't be right.
You've got too many zeros.
334,500,853
in today's
money. Wow.
Yeah.
That's nuts.
That's good.
So, yeah.
But so it kind of moves on. Sydney, it cuts to Sydney's house, which for the longest time was my dream house. That back porch is amazing. And this is supposed to be set in Ohio. That's where all of us are from and everything. So this obviously has to be Southern Ohio, because we don't have that shit around us.
Nope.
And we get a news broadcast about Marie Prescott 1 year ago raped and murdered, and like pretty tasteless, like how they're talking. It's like almost just like a year ago today, blah, blah, blah. This woman dropped the name. Like, it's so strange, like raped and savagely murdered. Like, it's the news sources down here are very, very bad.
But I think that goes along with the times. Like you have 24-hour news cycles and court TV and all of that stuff is taken off. So it's like that what is it, like blood cells or something like that?
Yeah.
So make it as like jarring as possible, and then you know that people are going to listen to it.
Yep.
They really play into that.
And then I must have really been into the movie because my notes jump forward a little bit. I'm sure some other stuff happens at this point. Because isn't this when... Yeah, this is when Sid gets her first phone call.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
She's like hanging out, waiting for her friend to come pick her up because she's going to stay the night there because her dad's gone. He's supposed to be staying in this Hilton out of town for the weekend. And she gets her phone call. And then it kind of just plays out similarly like the other one did with Drew Barrymore's character with, all of that. But she, which I didn't realize this when I was younger, obviously, is that she handles this more like a badass than any of them. Like she's just very aware of like the play out of this. So she's not backing down. Like her character's very strong in this movie. And it just, he comes out and he's trying to breaks into her house and there's all the fighting that ensues. And she's just giving it as good as she gets. And I'm laughing as I'm watching this because Ghostface gets his ass kicked. like multiple times. And then we kind of cut, which this was brilliant. We were talking about this. So in the beginning of the movie, when her dad comes in, when the boyfriend's breaking into the bedroom or coming into her window, her closet door and her bedroom door, when they're together, her door to her bedroom cannot open. So when Ghostface is chasing her through the house, she goes into her bedroom and the same thing happens. So he can't get to her. And I thought that was brilliant because they set it up in a way that it just made sense. And that's kind of where we're at. Well, then boyfriend shows up randomly with a cell phone or something, and she thinks it's him. And then the cops show up and all this stuff happens. And
yeah, we got Dewey with the mask out front.
Yeah.
Like, ah!
Yeah. And then Dewey ends up being like this nice guy and like he's gonna take her, and he happens to be the brother to her best friend. So his character is he really is endearing. It's like he's just so dumb kind of, but like in this very sweet, like kind backwoods weird way.
He just wants to be taken seriously.
Yeah.
He's a golden retriever.
Yeah, he totally is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, like, because he even talks about, like, that nobody takes him seriously and stuff like that. Because he's like 25 or 26, because he was 25 for a whole year.
Yep.
He mentions when he's talking to Gale Weathers. But yeah, like, he's a young cop. He's a deputy, though. So, I mean, like, he's not just a beat cop. He must be pretty good at his job somewhat. I mean, but yeah, these are the worst cops ever, though, at the same time.
They are.
Like, just the handling of evidence.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fingerprints on everything.
Oh my God.
Pick up the mask.
Yeah. Well, and then they go to the jail and Billy gets taken in for questioning. And I think it's his lawyer that's sitting there with him talking to like whatever the main guy is there. And
it's his dad.
Is it his dad?
Yeah.
Okay.
I looked it up.
Okay. Because it's not very clear, I guess, when you're kind of watching it. But what's messed up is like there's a clear line of sight from Sydney where she's giving her statement to the supposed bad guy. Like nobody does that. Like that's not a thing. Like you don't have the victim sitting there with the guy that assaulted her like as a possibility. Like that's not a thing.
Oh, and Billy Loomis is giving the smolder look non-stop. Like just like keeps like looking over his shoulder, pouting. Like it is so egregious.
Yep. The Wish version of Johnny Depp kind.
Yes. He wishes he were Johnny Depp.
Yes. Maybe that's what he's thinking about when he's sending that to her. Yeah. When he's looking at her.
Yeah. But like, even to this point, it's like, if they've got the mask and they've got this and the shit's getting beat out of him and all this stuff, it's like, you can run DNA. You could like, there's got to be fingerprints on something here. Like none of that's, it doesn't matter.
Nope.
But at this point, I believe it cuts back to the school and the news anchors and stuff are going wild and everything. And a lady legitimately just yells out to Sydney, "How does it feel to almost be brutally butchered?"
One of the reporters says that, or just some random.
That's how I'm going to get her to
sticks
talk
a microphone
to me.
in my face.
Well, isn't this the same time that she's walking out and Gail just happens to be there too? And then she like decks her in the face, and it's just so good. And then instead of being hauled off for like assault, Dewey just takes her home and gives her some ice for her fist.
Yep, because Gail starts asking her questions about like putting an innocent man away to jail for life, and he's on death row because Sidney Prescott is like her testimony at her mother's murder trial is the reason Cotton Weary got put away, and you're told that she has wrote a book with Cotton Weary about how he's innocent and all this stuff. And she starts kind of putting things together like, oh, these things are connected, aren't they? This is still going on. This is the same thing. You put like basically just being like, you fucked up, Sydney. You sent a guy to prison to death row and all this stuff. And that's when she fucking just splits her open. And yeah.
But Sydney's like, remind you, her mom was murdered almost exactly a year before this. In like the town, like dropped in the town square or whatever they mentioned. But she's a teenager. Like we need to not forget that, because this lady who's a journalist is treating her like she's some adult, like she has to answer for something. I don't know a single teenager that's going to be like, yeah, I know all the facts and I know everything and I can think logically when my mother was brutally murdered. Like it's so strange that she has like this expectation that Sydney's supposed to be, all knowing or something.
Yeah. They're at the school and everything. We've got a prank of some kids running down the hallway with ghost face masks on. Stu's laughing, loving it and everything, but Sydney clearly is not, because she was almost, and I quote, almost brutally butchered just last night. But yeah, we cut to the Fonz with the kids in his office being extremely sinister with a pair of scissors, expelling these two for doing this because their classmates were murdered and all this stuff. So around this time also, Sydney runs into Billy, and Billy's kind of like, I just got out of jail, they took my prints, all this stuff, like, you still think I'm the killer, don't you? Which he keeps just gaslight all day long, just like, what like brooding face, pouty face, what?
And then he makes it about them not having sex with each other, which I was just like, are you flipping kidding me right now? Your girlfriend doesn't want to do you and you're brooding over that too.
It's a very serious topic. She needs to get over the fact that her mother was raped and murdered, but not him. And then she needs to like let him put it in stat.
Yep.
He's not happy that her mom's murder changed her.
Yeah,
I think that was said at some point.
Yeah. Yep. My mom left. You just need to get over it.
Yeah.
Which he clearly has not gotten over. It's literally the motivation of him in this movie. To all of the young women in the world, guys will say anything to get in your pants, and Billy Loomis is a prime example of it.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, he's a shitbag, that's for sure.
So Sid goes into the bathroom, and she gets to hear these girls spitting all this vitriol and stuff. Just, like, it's probably Sid. She probably lost her mind and, all this stuff. Turns out, I'm not sure which one it is, but I did read that one of these girls is played by Skeet Ulrich's girlfriend at the time. So I wonder if she had like some beef with Nev Campbell and was just like, oh no, hold my beer, I got this.
Now's my chance.
Yeah.
And it's like all ad-libbed or something. She's just fucking going ham on her. And they are just fucking horrible.
Mm-hmm.
I had to ask Steph, I was like, is this what it was like in high school for girls? Like, is this how nasty your bathrooms were? Because these are some fucking rank bathrooms.
Yeah, not mine.
Not mine either.
Look, it literally looked like there was like puke around the base of these toilets and stuff, and just toilet paper everywhere. But we then see like Sydney's like done in the bathroom washing her hands, and you hear her name get whispered, which I don't remember hearing that.
I didn't either
initially.
I didn't hear that.
You just hear you didn't. Yeah, you just hear You just hear Sydney, and she's kind of looking around, and then you see the feet come out and the ghost face dress, smock, whatever you want to call it, come out, and we get another scene of Sidney Prescott just beating the ever living shit out of that ass. I could just watch a super cut of that all day long. Yep. And because of this, the Fonz decides that school is canceled for the foreseeable future. Of course, the kids are like, party at Stu's house. Which, I mean, the party that gets put on at this house gives me flashbacks of being in high school in Ohio, being underage and going and partying and stuff. Like, it wasn't at these houses and stuff, but the feel of it reminds me of that. Like, I was like, so Scream comes out in 96. I was doing this like 4 or 5 years later, and it still had the same feel. So I think they did a really good job of that. This scene, though, the whole party scene, like the final party scene and everything, I guess took 21 days, I believe it is, to shoot. It was super, super, super long. And when they were done with it, they all the cast got shirts that said, "I survived scene 118," because that was the final scene and it took so long to do. That some of them said it was it in itself was a horror film to shoot.
Wow. Yeah, that scene took just as long as all of Oculus. Took 3 weeks to make Oculus.
Oh my gosh.
3 weeks to make that one scene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man. Yeah. And so, but go back with the Henry Winkler at the school. That's such a good part.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, okay, fine. So we're at the school and Henry has basically closed everything down. He's the principal and he goes out and he's looking around because does he hear something or something like that? And you don't know much about this character other than he's just the principal. And Nick pointed this out to me yesterday, which I did not know this. So he goes outside and there's a janitor in the hallway that's dressed like Freddy Krueger. And on the hallway, and there's this janitor who's dressed like Freddy Krueger, and his name is Fred. And Nick said that that's actually Wes Craven.
Oh, really?
I did not know that.
Does he do that? Does he make appearances like Stan Lee does?
Not as much as that I know of, but I remember seeing that when I was a kid and making the connection that Fred, and he's got the striped sweater, he even has the hat and everything, and it wasn't until later that I found out it was Wes Craven. But yeah, like it's straight up because he's just like, "What the hell did you say to me?" Because he like the Fonz comes out. Excuse me, the Fonz comes out and he's just like, "Little shits," and that's when you see him, and he's just like, "What'd you say to me?" He's like, "Oh, nothing, Fred." I was just like, "Fuck yeah."
Yeah, it was cute.
Yeah, I noticed the Freddy Krueger, but I never would have guessed that was him.
And then poor Mr. Principal goes back into his office, and then there's no more Mr. Principal. So,
yeah, the Fonz jumps his last shark and gets got by Ghostface. We then cut to Randy and Stu in the movie store, which is probably one of my favorite like character scenes in this film, of like just back and forth. And it's basically Randy, played by Jamie Kennedy, who works at the store, talking to Stu, played by Matthew Lillard, about like, you know, if he's got a chance with Sydney, and Billy's there, like kind of looks like maybe flirting with some girls and stuff, and keeps talking about how he thinks he's like, you know, like he's got, you're telling me that guy's not a serial killer? Like, there's just like all these things that are adding up and everything.
I can't believe he's standing in the horror section. That's my favorite part.
Yeah. Can you believe the day after your girlfriend is almost brutally butchered, he's just standing there in the horror section? He has no tact.
What a monster.
But then Stu brings up the fact, he's like, I don't know, maybe you're the killer. And like rightfully so, Randy's like, you know what? I you know, yeah, it makes sense that it'd be me. Like, I'm the horror like freak. Like he loves horror films and all this stuff. He's always quoting these things. It makes sense. And like Billy kind of shows up behind him. And just it's I don't know how when I watched this the first time, I did not make these connections that like Billy and Stu are working as a team, because there's so many times where they're teaming up on people just doing this like, yeah, like watch what you're fucking doing kind of stuff. And it's just, I just love this scene.
It's because you were 10.
Hey,
we have to remember that. We were children.
I was advanced for my age. But then we find out from I believe it's the police chief, the sheriff, that Neil Prescott's phone is the one that these phone calls that were coming to the houses and stuff are coming from. So Sydney's dad's phone is making the calls. And it's at this time that we kind of realize that Dewey's a moron and Gail is a manipulative bitch, is what I have written in here, because Dewey's just walking around eating ice cream.
And I think like the ice cream cone just adds to his sweetness, and like he just wants to be liked. So apparently he can only be liked by his by his younger sister's friends. Basically, Dewey invites her to come like out with him, right?
To a teenage party.
Hell yeah.
That's just weird in itself. Like a cop's hanging out with a bunch of drunken teenagers at a party just to be cool and accepted. And then you've got this like journalist hanging around with them.
He pulls the beer from my kid. He's like, hey, aren't you too young for that? And just hands it back. He's like, have a good time. Just be responsible. I'm just like, this dude's getting thrown off the fucking force. But
Yep. Because his sister doesn't even like him. She like emasculates him. Like she's just so not nice to him. And so I feel bad for him because he gets the shaft from everybody and everybody takes advantage of him.
Yeah, and it's at this time that Gail Weathers, a career woman, is just like walking around just like, yeah, I'm Gail Weathers. Yeah, I'm Gail Weathers, bitch. And plants a camera in the living room, to which we then find out that there's like about a 30-second delay to the news truck that it's piping to. And during this time is when we get the iconic scene of Randy like they're watching, I believe it might be Terror Train. It's definitely a Jamie Lee Curtis film. So she was in Halloween, Terror Train, Prom Night, like all of these movies, like year after year after year. It's the reason she's like the original Scream Queen. But the other people don't understand, and he's like, you don't understand, you don't know the rules of horror films, and
They're
breaks it down.
Halloween.
So rule number 1, no sex. If you have sex, you will die. Rule number 2, no drinking or drugs. If you do these things, you will die. And rule number 3, if you're going somewhere, never ever say, I'll be right back. And Stu just killing it as always. Like, hey, I'm going to get a beer, Randy. You want one? He's like, yeah. He's like, okay, I'll be right back. He goes out the door, and everyone's like, oh. And I just, all these years later, still kills me. We're like 17 years out now, I think. Maybe longer. Oh, definitely longer. Oh my God.
Yeah, it's been 2 decades.
26 years.
It's been 2 decades since I've seen this movie. So this movie is almost...
Time's a flat circle.
This movie is almost 30 years old.
You're almost 30 years old.
That's a great compliment. Thank you.
But Dewey's going to investigate that. He'd heard that there's a car in the bushes, and Gail goes and follows in tandem. They talk a bit, and they find Neil Prescott's car has been ditched in the bushes after being run off the road by some drunk kids that are leaving the party because they heard that their principal has been murdered and strung up from the goalposts, and they want to see him before they take it down.
But 2 of those guys were the 2 kids that got expelled during the in the office, because I noticed that 2 of those 2 guys were at the party.
Okay, I didn't notice that.
Yeah.
The guys that left the party to go see him were the guys that got expelled?
Yes. 2 of the guys were, yeah.
So, let's see here. It's at this time that Billy finally gets his way, and they're talking. Billy and Sydney are talking, and
You're skipping a pivotal part,
God.
honey.
I'm
You're missing
sorry.
like you're missing the garage
How the
scene.
fuck did I miss that? I've got it
Yeah.
written. Oh, I think I have it written out of order. Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Tatum in
Okay.
full hard nipple glory walks out into the garage.
go for it,
So-
Tasha.
I don't know. I don't remember all of it. I might be saying it out of, but the biggest part to me is just the unapologetically hard nipples
Yep.
where she she's playing that architect beautifully.
Yep.
Walking out, there's no need for it. But anyway, so she walks out, and honestly, it's the only part I remember because at this point I fell asleep.
Oh no.
History reminds me of how she met her demise, but
She grabs beers from the refrigerator that's in the garage, and the garage door she tries to open, then it goes back closed, and there's a doggy door in it, and it's being really strange. And so she goes over and she's like, and she goes over and grabs the beers, and she turns around and there's Ghostface standing on the step, and she thinks it's just somebody fucking around, and she's just playing into that like kind of dumb concept, or like she just thinks it's a prank, and it's not a prank. And so when he starts to advance on her and cause problems, she's chucking the beer bottles at him. So she's given as good as she's getting basically in the beginning. And he I think at one point, if I remember correctly, one of those beer bottles breaks right on his genitals. And like, I was like, you go, girlfriend. And then I want to say she breaks another one over his head or his face or something.
Throws one, it smashes in his face, another one into the crotch. He goes to stab her and like trips over and flips back onto the stairs.
That's
and
it.
That's
Yep.
when she's getting ready to make her escape.
Yes. And so she goes to go through the doggy door because she can't get out. And of course, then he pushes the button and goodbye.
One of the most imaginative kills, and it is the most imaginative kill in this movie, but like just in general, like I don't care if it looks a little corny when her face gets smashed up in the thing, because it kind of looks like
rubber.
It looks like a mask kind of getting crushed in, but like just the overall, like her getting drug up in the door and everything. I love that scene. Like it's, in my opinion, my favorite kill in this film. Because you don't see a lot of like imaginative kills in this movie, really. You just get like stabbed. Oh, stabbed again.
That's, well, other than at the end.
Yeah, the end is completely different.
Yeah.
But like everything building up to this, like, but let's see here what we got. So yeah, then jumping back, they have sex and everything, and kind of in her post-sex clarity, Sydney's asking Billy some questions like, so when you were in jail, like, who'd you use your call for? And he's like, I called my dad. It's like, no, like, I saw the sheriff do that. And it's like, yeah, when I called, he didn't answer. And it's just like, oh, you slimy motherfucker. Like, it just like keeps building up. And still at this point, like, I was like, I don't know. It could be, I don't know. He seems right, but I'm always that guy. It's like, they're making this obvious. They obviously have to be doing something else. And it's at this point, like, he's kind of explaining himself that Ghostface comes in and kills him, stabs him a few times and everything. He turns around, kind of reaches out to Sydney, falls down on the bed. Sydney goes to escape, I believe, out the window. And this is when this has to be the tightest boat tarp ever, because she falls out this window into the boat. And if that thing's not tight enough, that girl is snapping her spine on those seats. Like, I don't know how, like, we're supposed to believe that, but whatever. So she gets out. I believe it's at this time when she's running. This is when she sees Tatum caught up in the door, I believe.
Somewhere around that time. No, that's towards the end. But yeah.
That's further down.
Yeah. She's running through like the fields and doing all that stuff. And she talks to the guy at where they realize the delay is going on, because the ghost face is in the living room, like with his knife, as Jamie Kennedy's character is sitting there watching his horror movie, like saying, something about look behind
you, Jamie.
Yeah.
Because it's funny because his name's Jamie Kennedy and he's talking about Jamie Lee Curtis. And I think he just keeps going like, look behind you, Jamie, as Ghostface is behind him about to kill him.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's at this time, though, that they see this in the truck happening, but a sound happens that makes Ghostface leave. There's the 30-second delay. So when they come to step out of the truck, Ghostface kills the camera guy.
Slices his throat open. It's pretty bloody. It's pretty good. Yeah. And then she climbs through the truck and he chases after her. And that's when she goes on her little run through the outdoors area.
Yep. She starts running up to the house then, and you see Deputy Dewey coming out and kind of like staggered, like, Sid, and he kind of braces up against the wall and you see a knife protruding out of his back.
Yep.
At this time. And I got Dewey done been stabbed in my notes.
Yeah. And then the culmination of the rest of this movie is like brilliantly written because, you know, he comes in and I can't remember all the ins and outs of it, but the supposedly dead boyfriend is coming down the stairs. And
Billy comes falling down the stairs.
And she gives him the gun that she has or the knife that she has, one of the two. I can't remember what she has. And
it's a gun.
Is it a gun? And then magically he's not dead and he's got corn syrup on him.
Well, I've got the paranoia reaches a fever pitch because Stu and Randy both come flying up at the door and they're both accusing each other of being the killer. Yep. And Sid is not having it and she locks them out and they're just screaming outside the door. Like, it's him. Yep. And it just like hits this peak. And that's when Billy kind of falls down the stairs. She starts taking care of him. And that's when Billy shows like, haha, it's me. I believe, let's see here. Gives him the gun, opens the door, and shoots Randy. So Randy's dead, or so we believe. And then that's when we find out that in a huge twist, as it were, we're not dealing with one killer, we're dealing with two. Stu and Billy show their cards that they have been the ones perpetrating all of this. And Stu just has some amazing lines through this entire thing. He's like, watch a few movies, take a few notes. It was fun. Like, just like all sorts of like a cartoon character almost.
Yeah, he's awesome.
Yeah.
And the fact that he got cast, because this is what I was going to mention earlier.
He's my favorite character in this movie.
He got cast because he was with like a friend of his or a girlfriend of his that was trying out for a movie. And the casting director for this movie saw him and was like, hey, would you like to try and read for this? You kind of look the part and everything. And his energy and everything, and a lot of like, I guess he ad-libbed a lot of things because Williamson said that this character was like horribly underwritten. And so Matthew Lillard like really is the reason for this character being the Stu that we all sadly know and love.
Yeah, he's an awesome character. Like his comedic role in this is just perfection. It's awesome.
So they then explain, you know, like, well, this happened, like, got to kill all these people, and then everybody got murdered, and only left us for dead. So the last thing we got to do is make it look right. So they begin to stab each other. Billy and Stu do.
Oh, yeah.
Sydney disappears. So during all of this altercation and stuff of them like stabbing, she just kind of goes missing. And poor Stu is just like kind of like, I'm feeling pretty woozy here, man. Like, I think you went too deep and all this stuff. And Billy is fucking losing it because he's talking previous to Sydney leaving, is explaining their reasoning for doing this, that they killed her mother because her mother was a cheating whore that slept with his father and caused his mother to leave. But remember, he's totally over it. She left a year ago or whatever, and he got over it. So
totally adjusted.
Clearly.
Well, and then the dad gets pulled out of the closet, and then they like throw them on the floor taped together and stuff, and she has to just like stand there and watch her father like lay on the floor as they're stabbing each other and telling her like this whole story is unfolding essentially.
Yep. So they then put the cell phone that was a cloned version of his cell phone and the voice manipulation box and put that on him and everything. Like, boom, it's all tied up. He's already a suspect, you know, like he's going down for it. He killed all these people and then shoots himself in the head. That's what happens. And we were left for dead. Sydney goes missing. Gail shows up after driving a van with blood all over it, all over the place. Like, she just has her own little off-road adventure for a little bit. And she ends up showing up and gets the gun because Stu goes to grab the gun to deal with Sydney since she's disappeared and he can't find it. He's like, I left it right here. Like, it's like the most Matthew Lillard way. He's like, it was right here. Like, it's really good. And now the roles have kind of reversed. So the gun's missing, Sydney's gone, and they start hunting her down, trying to find her. Sydney comes out of the closet dressed as Ghostface, stabs Billy a couple times in the chest with an umbrella, and Gail gets ready to shoot, but it's not working. Billy overpowers her, knocks her out, gets ready to shoot her, and explains that like the gun works better when the safety's off. Then Sydney, I believe, is gone again, makes a phone call and starts playing the role of like the killer kind of thing. And Billy's getting all pissed, and Stu's on the phone now and is basically talking about like, you know, like everybody's going to find out. And Stu's like, are you going to tell my mom and dad? It's like, yeah, they're going to find out. And he's like, my mom and dad are going to be so mad at me. And like his reasoning for this is like, well, why'd you do it or whatever? He's like, peer pressure. I'm far too sensitive. But Stu tries to kill. Yeah. Like this whole thing, Stu is just like one-liner after one-liner. Like, you cut me too deep. I think I'm dying. Like everything he says, no matter how tragic, it's just good. But Stu goes to try and take care of Sydney. He then gets like kind of judo tossed, if I remember, down, TV knocked on his head, and he is electrocuted. Dunzo for him.
Solid kill.
Yep.
Then Billy is actually shot by Gail this time. She awakens after being knocked out, shoots him, and Sid takes the gun from him, or from Gail, walks up to Billy, and Randy says like, this is the part in the movie where the, you know, the killer gets one last thing, and Billy sits up like, ugh, and Sid just right in the head, right between the eyes, dead. And she says, not in my movie.
Where that, I don't think that would work in any other movie, but it fits with this one.
It somehow works for this movie. We cut to like the camera panning out and everything. We hear like Gail is breaking the story of, you know, what has happened here and everything. And then we roll credits. That is the gist of the movie for the most part, no matter how many things I missed and then we had to go back on. That's it. You've seen it.
It all kind of rolls together, so it's easy to get things confused. And then the other thing I liked about this movie is that the ghost face, the real name of that costume, is called Father Death. That's the name of the costume that they have to buy in order to dress up as it. So I was like, that's kind of funny because you see like a packaging of it somewhere and it says that. And I was like, that's really clever.
They say Dewey in the movie says that like it's hard to track this suit because it's sold at every 5 and dime store. After the release of this movie, this has become, to this date, I believe, the highest selling Halloween costume, like, period.
Well, do you remember those years? Like after we all watched this when we were probably too young to watch this, and like every Halloween, all the kids at school wear this, and I was just like, "This is crazy!" Yeah.
Two kids in school, all 500 of them are wearing it. Like there were more of these costumes than there were kids.
Yeah, it was crazy.
But Yeah, so let's go around and give our ratings on Scream. So out of out of 10 Rose McGowan nipples. Tasha, what do you give Scream?
All right. I love this movie. I love the fact that Wes Craven was able to condition us to think that a ringing phone was scary. That I think is great. Watching it as a kid, like it doesn't hit. This is another one that it doesn't hit the same, but it hits in a different way. The nostalgia. Ghostface isn't scary to me. It's comical when he's running through, and knowing that this movie has like hyperbole and has like self-awareness and all of that. It's done beautifully, kind of like how you guys talked about Trick or Treat. I see this movie as my Trick or Treat because of all of the rules that they're trying to follow and then they break. And, the like I mentioned, the archetypes earlier, it's so beautifully spelled out. I'm giving this movie a 9. I've watched it multiple times. We watched it just a couple months ago, which is probably why I fell asleep the other night watching it. But this one's a good one. It's on rotation. Yeah.
Nice. Steph, what do you give it?
Oh, okay. Rose McGowan's
9 Rose McGowan's.
Yeah. Okay. So again, I hadn't seen this movie in 20 years, so I know it hit different when I was a kid. I had to leave all the lights on. I was afraid to go to sleep. Like, I am not a slasher film person. That's just not my jam. I mean, I do like a little Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but other than that, most of those movies don't hit for me. But this movie is brilliant, like in a way that most horror movies are not brilliant. And like what Tasha was saying, I think Trick or Treat is my favorite horror movie overall, just because it's built so beautifully and just the creativity of it. But this hits right up there with it only because it's built the way that it's built, and it's because it's self-aware, like she said, and it still holds up to its hype and its creativity almost 30 years later. I mean, that's saying something. And I'm going to say that I will give this movie an 8, and that's really high for me. So I ate Rose McGowan's nipples. That's what I'm rating.
You ate them? Oh my God.
I ate them. Yeah.
Like I said, this is my favorite slasher. Not to beat a dead horse, basically the same thing that you girls said. It's masterfully done and everything. I also am not the biggest slasher fan. I like them and everything, but that's not my go-to. But that being said, this movie has so many good things. Even like its falters are completely excusable. Like the soundtrack during the movie, like Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds, like the Red Right Hand song and everything is, boom, dun, 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 dun. It totally has this vibe and everything going with it. Yeah.
It's good.
I'm splitting the difference between the both of you. I am giving this movie 8.5 Rose McGowan nipples out of 10. I don't think that there's a straight slasher that I like more. This is really good. I was like, does it go to 9? It's better than an 8, so it sits there snugly in the middle.
Yeah, it's really good. And the cast is just incredible. Like the star-studded, and a lot of them, like we'd said, they're not even like super famous at this point. Like a lot of them haven't really had a lot of screen time, other than like Drew Barrymore at this point, really, other than the Fonz, because the Fonz is the Fonz. But I really like that about this, because then everybody in this movie, for the most part, other than Skeet Ulrich's character, goes on to then make a lot more movies and have a lot more, notoriety and stuff in their films. And Matthew Lillard has always been just really funny. So I don't know.
Yeah,
it's
like
great.
Nev Campbell is in the new Twisted Metal show. Like we're pretty.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, she is.
We just started watching that out of nowhere a couple months ago. Like when it first started, we binged it over the weekend, and it was just like, oh shit, Nev Campbell's still out here pumping out the jams.
Yeah, Skeet Ulrich is just basically the guy from Scream.
Yeah,
seems like yeah.
Yep.
So, what is your what's your your teacher's grade for Scream there, Tasha.
Figured out what I was doing wrong, and we have a proper percentage this time.
All right.
85, which
85,
which I think is our highest rating. Yeah,
By far.
Absolutely.
this is the
only movie
Yes, it
we've
is.
agreed on.
Yes. This is
took the words
definitely
right out of my mouth.
this is
Yep.
definitely the Trio of Terror approved.
Well, I was surprised, Tasha, because you're not a big like gore fan, and I know this movie isn't like gratuitous in its gore, but like there are entrails and like some scenes that are a little more bloody than others. So I was curious to see if that was going to bother you in this, or if it was just kind of like going along with the theme of
This
the
is
movie.
Scream. Like, it can't do wrong. Even the new one is good, but it's good because it harkens back to the original. Like in this, there's like the music was forgettable to me. I remember that song, but I couldn't place where it was. But yeah, like and this is where like, had I known going into Trick or Treat that it was supposed to be like tongue in cheek, I probably would have liked it more. I knew that going into Scream. So all of that was just added to the makeup of the movie. So I think going in now, if there are any movies I at least need to know the category it falls into, so then I know like what to expect.
Yeah. So yeah, like it's our end all scoring is over 10% higher than any other film that we've reviewed. Like it's like exponentially higher. So this is a game club. I forgot to mention that at the top, but our
Movie
game
club.
What the hell is wrong with me?
Pick two.
Because we have a lot of
Yes,
board
we do have
games.
a lot of board games. So at the end of this episode, we are telling you what we are getting ready to watch so you can watch it before you listen to us. So our next movie that we are watching, be prepared to watch The Witch from I believe it's like 2014, maybe somewhere in there. So we will be watching The Witch, of which we will be talking about. So thank you for listening to Pod of the Dead. I am Nicholas.
I am Natasha.
I am Stephanie.
And come back and listen to us next week. Or else.
Bye.